Hello dear students, welcome back to EDUHUNT video lecture series. In the previous session, we have seen how photosynthetic process takes place in a leaf. What are the factors that are required for photosynthesis? CO2, water, sunlight, these are the external factors, and the internal factor is the chlorophyll molecule. Chlorophyll molecules are present in chloroplast. Chloroplast consists of grana and stroma. In grana, light reaction takes place, and stroma, dark reaction takes place. And all these details we have covered in the previous session. Now we are going to see how the stomata present and what is the role of stomata in metabolic activities. Let's move on to the topic. Stomata, what are stomata? Stomata are the tiny pore-like structures present on leaf. Mostly they are present in leaf, and even they are present in stem also. Where stomata are not present? Roots. In roots, stomata are absent. In aerial parts, stomata are present. Stomata are nothing but tiny pore-like structures meant for exchange of gases and also for transpiration. What is transpiration? Transpiration is nothing but loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts into the atmosphere. Loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts into the atmosphere. This is called transpiration. During photosynthesis, the plants require water, and transpiration is a process. It eliminates water from the body. Remember? And for this elimination also, plants require stomata. Let's see the structure of stomata and how they operate in the leaf. If we look into the structure, stomata, the pore, it is called the pore. The pore is surrounded by two bean-shaped or kidney-shaped cells in dicots, especially it is seen in dicots. The structure is confined to dicots. In monocots, the cells are dumbbell-like. Not like this, they are like dumbbell. Exercise gym lo chustar kada, dumbbells etutu untara. So, avi ila ette pedda wheels untayi adi kaadu. Dumbbells, rendu individual dumbbells ala untayi. Let's draw this. Ippudu gurtochinda? Yes, these are dumbbells. Monocots lo dumbbell shape lo untayi. Ee God cells. Ade dicot lo aithe God cells kidney shape or bean shape lo unnai chudandi. A pore is surrounded by two cells called two God cells, and the God cell, the membrane is differential membrane. The cell wall that is adjacent to the pore is thick, and opposite to the pore is outer side of the cell wall is thinner in nature. It is thicker, the inside wall is thicker, that is adjacent to the pore is thicker, and the outer wall of the God cell is thinner. And surrounding the God cells, there are epidermal cells called subsidiary cells or accessory cells. There is a pore called stoma. Surrounding that, there are two God cells. In God cells, there is chloroplast, green in color. Surrounding the God cells, there are cells called accessory cells or subsidiary cells. And there is a cavity behind the stomata called substomatal cavity. When the stoma is closed, when the pore or aperture is closed, it looks like this. Both the guard cells come closer to each other. Whenever it opens, it looks like that. Whenever the pore or the aperture opens, the two guard cells expand. When they compress, the pore gets closed. This movement is based on the turgor pressure present in the guard cell. Turgidity means a cell is said to be turgid when it has high water content and it becomes swollen. When it occupies the full volume, the cell is said to be turgid. అంటే బాగా ఉబ్బిన సెల్. అంటే ఒక బెలూన్ తీసుకున్నాం. బెలూన్ని ఇఫ్ వి స్టార్ట్ బ్లోయింగ్ ఇట్, ఫుల్గా ఎక్స్పాండ్ అయిన బెలూన్, దాట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ టర్జిడ్ సెల్. సెల్ కూడా అంతే, సెల్లో వాటర్ ఉండి కంప్లీట్గా స్వెల్ అయ్యి కంప్లీట్ వాల్యూమ్ ఆక్యుపై చేసి ఉంటే దాన్ని టర్జిడ్ సెల్ అంటారు. అలా కాకుండా ఇఫ్ ఇట్ లూజెస్ వాటర్, ఇట్ బికమ్స్ ఫ్లాసిడ్ సెల్ అంటాం. టర్జిడ్ సెల్, ఫ్లాసిడ్ సెల్. టర్జిడ్ సెల్ అంటే ఉబ్బిన సెల్, ఫ్లాసిడ్ సెల్ అంటే ఫ్లాట్ సెల్. Cells, when they are, the guard cells, when they are in turgid condition, they will expand, they open the pore. When they are in closed position, the cells become to flaccid condition. ఇవి ఎప్పుడు జరుగుతాయి అంటే డ్యూరింగ్ డే టైమ్ ద స్టొమాటా opens. During night time, the stomata closes. Stomata are active during daytime and passive during night time or inactive during night time in moderate conditions. If we move into the deserts, the cells, the plants are succulent, xerophytic plants, and they do not have enough water. That is why if the water availability is very limited, very scanty, then how they get water for their metabolic activities? For that they show some adaptations. We have seen ecological adaptations in the previous chapter. Even now, the cells, the plants show some adaptations like thick cuticle and presence of sunken stomata. Stomata are not exposed out, they are present in some cavities. They are hidden in the cavities to prevent or to lessen the water loss, to minimize the water loss, to escape this loss. They show some adaptations. And we have seen in photosynthesis that gaseous exchange takes place. That is, the CO2 required for photosynthesis, that enters through the stomata, and the oxygen that is produced also leaves through the stomata. This is called gaseous exchange. And even not only for photosynthesis, respiration, a metabolic process, requires oxygen and releases CO2. And this gaseous exchange also takes place through the stomata only. So that is why stomata are very important. And even in xerophytes also photosynthesis takes place. In photosynthetic process, stomata are required for photosynthesis because through the stomata only gaseous exchange takes place. If the stomata are open, what happens? Water evaporates, water escapes through the stomata. If the cells close, the CO2 responsible or CO2 essential for photosynthesis will not get in. So there is a difficulty. If it opens, water escapes. If it closes, CO2 will not come in. So there is a difficulty. For that reason, they open their stomata during night. That is called scotoactive stomata. In xerophytic plants, in desert plants, they are very clever. The stomata open during night time, called scotoactive stomata. In ordinary plants, the stomata active during daytime, they are called photoactive stomata. Photo is light. During daytime, light is available. Photoactive stomata. In contrast to that, there is another type of stomata called scotoactive stomata seen in xerophytes. These are active during night time, because if they are active during daytime, water gets escaped from the pore. To prevent this, to avoid this, they close the stomata. The stomata remain closed during daytime and open during night time. Okay, that is one of the adaptations shown by xerophytic plants. And even they also a special type of photosynthesis, carbon fixation takes place in xerophytes, that is called CAM pathway, crassulacean acid metabolism. Crassulacean acid metabolism. Anyway, how these stomata open and close, the mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. Let's see. During daytime, what happens is, we have seen some chloroplasts inside the stomata. These chloroplasts, they are responsible for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes place. Because of that, these photosynthetic, what is the product of photosynthesis? That is glucose. When it is dissolved in water, the water becomes the water present in the cell. Now the water becomes the water potential, that is the quantity of water comes to reduced, comes to down. Then the surrounding cells, to compensate this, the surrounding cells will give water from the additional accessory cells. Like that, water moves into the cell during daytime. If the cell takes up water, what they become like swollen, and they occupy the entire volume. That is why the pore opens during daytime. During night time, all the thing is shut down, switch off. Photosynthetic process comes to zero. There is no synthesis of starch or glucose, and there is no water income. So there is no water entry. That is why the cells, the guard cells become flaccid. They become flat. Whenever they become to flaccid condition, they come closer and they cause the closing of stomata. This is the process of mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. During daytime, because of photosynthesis, glucose will be synthesized, and this glucose, whenever it dissolves in water, water potential comes to lessen. It comes down, water potential comes down. Always water moves from higher water potential to lower water potential. Water potential is nothing but pressure. That is potential of water, pressure of water, chemical potential of water. Potential is nothing but, it is like energy to do work. It is pressure or potential. Whenever it comes to lesser state, the surrounding cells try to move the water, push water into the guard cells. The whole thing results in opening of the stomata. In the second case, that is during night time, the entire photosynthetic process shut down. Water entry will not be there. That is why the cells, the guard cells become flaccid. As a result of this, the stoma closes. The stomata close, remain closed during night time. Malli morning avagane photosynthesis start avutundi, malli water ఈ గాడ్ సెల్స్ లోకి ఎంటర్ అవుతుంది. నైట్ అవ్వగానే ఫోటోసింథసిస్ షట్ డౌన్ అవుతుంది. వాటర్ మూవ్స్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ద సెల్ అండ్ రిమైన్ క్లోజ్డ్. Dark reaction. Dark reaction is nothing but formation of carbohydrate. That is called carbon reduction or CO2 reduction or carbon fixation. It was discovered by Kelvin Benson. Kelvin Benson. That is why dark cycle or dark reaction of photosynthesis is also called as Kelvin cycle. It is also called as Kelvin cycle. Kelvin cycle is nothing but dark reaction of photosynthesis or carbon fixation or CO2 reduction of photosynthesis. It occurs in stroma. It is also called as C3 cycle. Kelvin cycle is also known as C3 cycle. The dark reaction, CO2 reduction, carbon fixation, Kelvin cycle and C3 cycle all are to the same process only. All names to the same process. C3 cycle. C3 cycle is known as in the dark reaction, the first stable product is a C3 carbon compound. That is why it is called C3 cycle. What is a 3 carbon compound? 3 carbon compound means the product consists of 3 carbons. Glucose is a 6 carbon compound because glucose has C6H12O6. That means C6H12O6. That means here there are 6 carbon atoms are there. In the same way, in the dark cycle or dark reaction, the first stable product is PGA, phosphoglyceric acid. PGA, phosphoglyceric acid. Note down. Phosphoglyceric acid. It is a 3 carbon compound. There are 3 carbons in phosphoglyceric acid. That is why it is the first stable product of the photosynthetic dark reaction. That is why it is also called as C3 cycle. There is another cycle in some other plants, like they are highly resistant to heat. They are called C4. It is called C4 cycle, where the first stable product is not PGA, that is oxaloacetic acid, OAA. The first stable product for some plants is oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4 carbon compound. That is why it is called C4 cycle, and it was described by Hatch and Slack. In sugarcane plants, this kind of maize, sugarcane, sorghum, wheat, oat, pearl millet, all these plants, they show this Hatch-Slack pathway. Okay? Examples for C4 cycle is maize, sorghum, wheat, oat, pearl millet, etc. Even sugarcane also. Dicot, so many plants are known as Amaranthus, Chenopodium. All these are monocots, like all these are cereals and millets. And it is in dicots also C4 cycle takes place. Examples are Amaranthus, Thotkora, Amaranthus, Chenopodium, Artiplex, Euphorbia, etc. And in some families of Compositae, that is Asteraceae, Banti Chamanti family, Portulaceae, మనం గడ్డి గులాబీలు చూస్తాం కదా ఆ ఫ్యామిలీ, Nyctaginaceae, పారిజాతం ఉంది. సో ఈ ఫ్యామిలీస్లో కొన్ని ప్లాంట్స్లో C4 cycle కూడా చూస్తాము. C3 cycle is nothing but the first stable product of dark reaction is PGA. That is a 3 carbon compound. That is why it is called as C3 cycle. And in some other plants, the first stable product is oxaloacetic acid called C4 cycle. It is a 4 carbon compound. Oxaloacetic acid is a 4 carbon compound. That is why that pathway is known as C4 pathway, that was described by Hatch and Slack, and the plants which show this pathway are known as C4 plants, and the plants which show C3 cycle are known as C3 plants. C3 plants are there and C4 plants are there. C4 plants, they live especially in tropical and subtropical regions where temperatures are high. They can withstand water scarcity. Okay. ఇప్పటి వరకు మనం క్లోజింగ్, ఓపెనింగ్ స్టొమాటా అండ్ స్టొమాటాతో అయ్యే ప్రాసెస్ ఒకటి ఎక్స్చేంజ్ ఆఫ్ గ్యాసెస్, దట్ ఈస్ డ్యూరింగ్ photosynthesis CO2 comes in and oxygen releases out. During respiration, oxygen comes in and CO2 released out. And during transpiration, water in the form of water vapor goes out. And all these happen through the stomata only. When the stomata open and when they are closed. During daytime, they are open in some plants called photoactive stomata, and in xerophytes, in desert plants, they are closed in daytime and remain open during night time. They are called scotoactive stomata. These are especially seen in succulents. Succulents are bulky, fleshy xerophytes, desert plants. Whenever the water enters into the guard cells, the stomata open. Whenever it leaves the cells, they become flaccid and the pore closes. During daytime, stomata remain open, and during night time, they remain closed. In mesophytes, in xerophytes, reverse process takes place. And these details, and even in photosynthesis also, dark reaction we have discussed. In dark reaction, that is called carbon fixation or CO2 reduction. It takes place in the stroma, and it was first described by Kelvin Benson. That is why the cycle is called as Kelvin cycle, and the first stable product formed in Kelvin cycle is C3 product, that is phosphoglyceric acid, PGA. That is why it is also described as C3 cycle, and the plants which show C3 cycle are known as C3 plants. And next one is some other plants which show other than C3 cycle are known as C4 plants. And these C4 plants, the first stable product of dark reaction is other than phosphoglyceric acid, that is oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4-carbon compound. These plants are called C4 plants. And C4 plants, example for C4 plants, monocots kaite maize, sorghum, sugarcane chaptamu. Dicots aite composites, even composite family, Asteraceae family, Portulaceae, Nictaginaceae, Amaranthus, all these come under this category of C4 plants. There is no confusion between C3 and C4, light reaction, dark reaction. I hope you understood well. In light reaction, sunlight is there. In dark reaction, there is no sunlight. Light reaction takes place in grana, in thylakoid. In dark reaction takes place in stroma. With this, I finished my talk. Thank you.